All right, so every day it seems like we are getting new pieces of evidence to suggest that Democrats either don't really give a shit if they win in 2022 or they are actually actively trying to lose in 2022. And we have seen all of the polling data on this. Based on what we currently know, Democrats are set to get absolutely obliterated and clobbered in 2022. And it's really not surprising why. Okay, they have basically completely failed to materially deliver on even the half-assed compromises that Joe Biden ran on. And on top of that, they are doing shit like this. Okay, so this was a new clip that just came out. We just got confirmation basically that the Joe Biden administration in an election year, okay, coming up in 2022, is going to resume student loan payments for millions and millions of Americans who literally, as we were about to get into, can't afford to pay these. So let's just go ahead and hear from one of the worst ghouls in the Biden administration as of right now, Jen Psaki. So let's go ahead and watch this.
Biden administration considering extending that student loan payment pause? I know there's, if not, besides legislation that probably won't pass, what are some of the options that can help these people?
You're talking about the student loan payment pass that expires in February, just for clarity. So in the coming weeks, we will release more details about our plans and will engage directly with federal student loan borrowers to ensure they have the resources they need and are in the appropriate repayment plan. We're still assessing the impact of the Omicron variant, but a smooth transition back into repayment is a high priority for the administration.
Biden administration considering extending.
Okay, so again, you see their priorities, right? She literally just said a smooth transition towards starting repayments again is going to be a priority for the Biden administration, not canceling student loans as the majority of the American people want them to do. Okay, you see it in the data here, and it's not even really close. 52% of Americans want all student loan borrowers to have their debt forgiven, and that number only goes up towards a supermajority when you talk about more narrowly focused things like whether it's, $50,000 in student debt cancellation, or if you're going to means test it to some degree, it becomes even more popular. And granted, I disagree with means testing, and I think you should just wipe the slate clean, basically because, I think in a functioning society, you would not even have the conceptual existence of something like student debt. We should be literally paying people to go to medical school and law school and to get degrees because it is better for all of us. It is better for society to have a more educated populace who can then deliver benefits for the rest of us. Okay, I think that's pretty standard stuff right there. Okay, we shouldn't be trying to profit off of some of the industries that we insist on profiting off of here in the United States, whether it's education or healthcare or a number of other industries. I think there's just some things that should be off the table. So I think there shouldn't even conceptually be something, the existence of something like student debt. But again, the overwhelming majority of the American people support canceling it. Okay, they overwhelmingly support canceling student debt. And Biden, as he is already facing tanking approval ratings, okay, him and Kamala Harris especially have like almost borderline historic lows for this early in a presidency in terms of their favorability ratings among the American people. And again, it's not surprising why. You have this spokesperson for the Biden administration coming out here still in the middle of a pandemic, still in the middle of economic crash, basically. Still, they are coming out here and saying we are going to resume payments for, tens of millions of Americans. There are roughly 45 million Americans in this country that have student debt, and they want to resume repayments in the middle of the pandemic and economic crash during an election year and then expect there's not going to be consequences. This is what I mean when I say it seems like they're trying to lose, because this doesn't make sense not just politically, but it also doesn't make sense even economically. It's like you're actively trying to harm your party by doing something like this. There is no benefit whatsoever to the Biden administration to push forward with doing anything other than wiping out all of these student loans. Okay, that's how you would actually go out there and get an excited voting populace who wants to show up in the 2022 midterms and vote for you. You say, I canceled your student debt, right? I am materially delivering on something that is going to improve your life. So again, we know the consequences of this, okay? So here from The Guardian, I think they give a little bit of a good breakdown here and some good points. So they say, killing the middle class, millions in the U.S. brace for student loan payments after COVID pause. And this will just give you a little bit of a perspective in terms of how many Americans just straight up won't be able to pay these back. But they say the U.S. Department of Education paused repayment, collections, and interest on federal student loans in response to the COVID-19 pandemic under Trump, with the final extension on the pause scheduled to expire on the 31st of January 2022. So the initial payments will have to be due on like February 1st, basically. But now millions of Americans are bracing for resuming payments on federal student loans after nearly 2 years of relief, and the crisis is set to roll on again. And again, we're talking about federal student loans here, okay? So who does this benefit, all right? It doesn't benefit anybody, freeing up these tens of millions of people to then go and build a life elsewhere instead of having to pay thousands and thousands of dollars basically just in interest on their student loans, okay? They would actually be able to go out there, maybe buy a house, maybe start a family, maybe invest in other things within their own lives that would have economic benefits, again, for broader society, not just for those individual people. So it doesn't make sense from a political angle, also doesn't make sense from an economic angle, and you're going to see why here. But a recent survey of more than 33,000 student loan borrowers conducted by the Student Debt Crisis Center found 89% of borrowers are not financially secure enough to resume payments on February 1st. 89%, okay? 89% of people who have some form of student loans that they surveyed here, and we have a sample size of 33,000, okay? So it's a pretty substantial sample size. 89% are not in the financial situation where they are going to be able to do this thing that the Biden administration is about to demand that they do. Again, this is political suicide in many ways. But they say before the pandemic, more than half of all student loan borrowers were either in default, forbearance, deferment, or otherwise not making payments on their student debt. So again, even before the Joe Biden administration is deciding to do this during a pandemic and an economic crash, even before COVID, okay, more than half of these motherfuckers couldn't even afford to pay it then. Okay, and he's talking about doing this during a pandemic, an economic crisis, and an election year. Okay, so again, not really sure how you could come to any conclusion other than they are actively trying to sabotage themselves. And just to give you another perspective here, okay, we've seen this directly in terms of consequences in recent, even anecdotal stories, not just in the broader data. But here was a good interview basically from Business Insider. They say, meet an independent voter with $163,000 in student debt who left the Democratic Party after 4 decades because she felt betrayed by Joe Biden, saying, I really felt he was going to help us with the student loan problem. And, you know, it's no fault of her own why she thought that. It's because Joe Biden fucking ran on that, okay? He has not even done the bare minimum of what he ran on and promised the American people, okay? You even have corporate Democrats like Chuck Schumer coming out and saying that they support $50,000 in student loan debt cancellation. But Joe Biden is not even willing to do that bare minimum. He's not even willing to do even a fraction of that, okay? We see these stories come out, oh, we canceled, you know, $1 billion total of student debt, and it's only specifically for people who like literally got scammed by colleges, okay? So it's he's not even beginning to approach the problem. And again, this doesn't make sense from a political angle because the overwhelming majority of the American people want you to cancel at least something, okay? At least do something about it. Give some people some material relief. He's not willing to even do that. So it doesn't make sense from a political angle on that front. It also doesn't make sense doing this in an election year, okay? Coming in February of 2022 when you have elections coming up just months away, and you're also not giving people stimulus checks. You're also not sending people more material relief to help them other ways economically. And you're going to slap them with new bills that are going to be coming due, again, in the middle of an economic crisis and a pandemic, okay? So completely absurd political suicide move from that political angle. But again, even just from a broader economic perspective, what kind of society are you trying to build unless you're just trying to build a society to the benefit of, you know, a handful of, private executives who are making ridiculous amounts of cash off of student debt, unless that's your only priority? How does this make sense from an economic angle? You want to build a society in which people are burdened for almost the rest of their lives, in many cases, by hundreds of thousands of dollars or tens of thousands of dollars in student debt. You want to punish people. You want to disincentivize people from going to get a higher education, from becoming doctors and lawyers and engineers and all that. We should be actively encouraging people to do this. We should be paying for some of these students to go to school. But instead, we have the exact opposite incentive, just like we do in many other industries, like I was saying earlier, in the healthcare industry and other industries that should not be for profit. This is what it looks like to live in a hyper-capitalist hellscape where everything has to be profited off of, everything has to be extracted and squeezed for its maximum value to a handful of, a tiny minority of the population, to the detriment of the rest of the population, okay? This comes at the same time as Joe Biden failed to and really intentionally cut out the free community college program that was supposed to be in the Build Back Better Act, okay? So you're not establishing canceling free community college, let alone, free public college across the board. You're also not canceling student loan debt. So again, doesn't make any sense from any angle. If you actually canceled student loan debt, it would free up trillions of dollars for people to go and inject back into the American economy instead of paying off federally owned student loan debts that benefit absolutely nobody. They would actually be able to go and participate in the economy here in the United States in so many different ways. So it just doesn't make sense from any angle, top to bottom. Just an absolute disastrous political move here from the Biden administration. But again, not that surprising. This has basically been what his entire administration has looked like so far. And it looks like Democrats are intentionally setting themselves up to get absolutely obliterated in 2022.